Well, hello, everybody. I'm Amanda Patterson, and I am your hostess today. I am the admin of my private practice tribe. So if you're not already a member, be sure to join our online community of therapists in private practice, or those of you who want to be in private practice. You can find that group at My Private Practice Tribe on Facebook. And so today I'm excited to introduce Christi Garner, and she is going to share with us today about online therapy and online groups. So welcome, Christi.
Yay, thanks for having me today, Amanda. It's so exciting to be here with the Private Practice Tribe and everybody else.
And anybody watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and like so you can get more videos, so you can then become a triber too by joining our Facebook group. So great.
Yay.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got into what you're doing?
Sure. So my name's Christi Garner. I'm a psychotherapist online, and I mostly got into doing a lot more online work because I've been working and traveling around the country, working as a therapist, as a contract therapist. And so I didn't want to leave all of my clients when I left Hawaii. Right now I'm in Virginia, and I'm also licensed in Colorado. So I see a lot of people online from those three states and try to keep in touch with my local communities and providing services there, even when I'm away.
So you're licensed in 3 states?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I got my license in Hawaii and Colorado first because I was in Hawaii and I was also working in Colorado. And then I moved overseas for a few years. And then I came back and they stationed me in Virginia. And to do online therapy, to do therapy in the state of Virginia, you have to be licensed in the state you're in as well as the state where your clients are. So I wasn't going to get licensed here, but when I looked up all the rules, I realized to be legal and do therapy while I was in Virginia, I needed to get a license. So I applied for that license as well.
Probably a good idea to be ethical and legal in all of your therapy practices. I know that's a big question people have. I see it in our group all the time, and I see it in other Facebook groups too, like, who can I do online therapy with? And I think you answered it. I'm in Florida. That's how it is in Florida. You have to be in the state, and your client needs to be licensed in the state that you're in, and then you have to be working with clients that are also within your state. I think for things like emergency services and to know the laws and rules. I actually did a presentation a couple of weeks ago at the Florida Mental Health Counseling Association's conference, and I posed that question, like, what would you do if your client was in California and called you and they were suicidal, right? Well, I don't know what California's laws are. I don't know what California's rules are. I don't know what my reach is. And so I think when we're doing online counseling, it's really important to consider all of those things. So how do you navigate all of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of research and talking with the boards of the different states. So in Virginia, the board is really responsive. If I call them, I can always get a hold of them. It's easy for me to talk to someone there. In Hawaii, they're really understaffed, and usually it takes maybe 3 weeks to 6 weeks to get an answer. So it's kind of just navigating all of those phone numbers and really doing my due diligence and talking to other therapists that I can find, especially on your Facebook group and another one that I really connect with people in different states and try to get the right information. And I think another thing is, you're talking about the clients, right? The ethical responsibilities that we have. One of the great things about Hawaii is we're so used to doing work online. Even the doctors do a lot of work online because the different islands, and it's so rural. So it's a really well-known and trusted way to do any kind of health work there. Being back in Virginia or in Colorado, where it's still pretty new, a lot of people don't trust it. And so it's really getting out there and also talking with the local doctors and networking with the local therapist there to say, hey, if your client's homebound because they have a problem, I'm a great resource for you. I can kind of take them on for a while and make sure they're getting the service they need, or help you figure out how to, do this online in a HIPAA compliant, ethical way, because that's a whole other piece, right? A lot of my clients want to FaceTime. Like, can we just Facebook Live it or, message it? And I'm like, no, we can't do that. So really being super ethical about looking at all the ways that people can kind of download or take your your sessions. Like we talk about, if your internet's down at home, can you go to Starbucks? Well, someone at Starbucks could hack into my live stream and be in on my conversation with my client. So there's just a lot of ethical responsibilities when it comes to being online that probably I don't even know about cybersecurity wise, but we try our best.
What platform do you use in order to do your online sessions?
Sure. I use Simple Practice because I was already using that as my EHR, and then you can add on $10 a month to do online through them. And I do groups online, and I use Regroup, which is a free software through Zoom. Zoom, that you have, to have a BAA with that, it costs a couple $100 a month, but Regroup is for therapists, and they have a BAA with Zoom to make sure that that's a HIPAA compliant platform for us. So I love using that for my groups as well.
That's awesome. I did not know that. I don't do any online groups, so I wouldn't have that information, but that's really good to know, because that's another question people ask sometimes is, how do I do groups online, right? And that's a great resource. So for those of you that are watching, a great tool is Zoom, which is, we're actually recording on Zoom right now. And there are certain levels, you're right, for Zoom. There's a free one, and then you can pay. And then if you need a BAA, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How are you finding clients, and what tips would you have for people that are looking to find clients through to do online therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, in Hawaii, I have a really strong network of people that know my specialty. I do a lot of trauma and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm a certified clinician in that, so the people I worked with there know that about me, and I'll take on a really small amount of clients if they have enough connection in the community, and do some of this TFCBT work with them. The groups that I have, I still send a lot of information out to the therapists that I've worked with in the past. And I say, hey, if your client needs a little extra support with the mindfulness and mindset, which is kind of the CBT stuff, I'm running a 5-week group, and I'd love to have any of your clients that need the extra support. Being in transitioning back and forth to Colorado, I don't have a strong network there. So what I did was, I've been on some of the local therapist, like Colorado Springs therapy group, and we do like a coffee chat in Zoom with all the therapists, where I find out about what their specialty is, and they're talking to me, so I can refer out people that call me and aren't appropriate for my services. And I think being out here in Virginia, I really have done a lot of marketing and targeting people in my niche, and then having sometimes I do 1 day a week in an office so I can meet and greet people, and then I explain to them, like, my long-term, commitment to them would be more online than in person. But I think it's still so new that people are still kind of afraid. Like, are you a real therapist? Is this real therapy? So, I think it's all different, but definitely marketing to your niche, networking with other therapists. And then I do some meetup groups where I go out and I run them, and I talk with people about setting up mindfulness groups in the community, and find a lot of clients that way as well. So just trying to get down and talk to people as much as possible, and not spend all day just in my office or in my house, staring at a computer, because I don't think it always works as well,
And do you have online directories in Hawaii, Colorado, and Virginia? Like, do you have a Psychology Today or anything like that? I guess it would be hard because Psychology Today is so location specific.
Yeah, definitely. So I keep my Hawaii, because you can list 2 locations. So I keep my Hawaii and my Colorado listed up on my Psychology Today, and I get a lot of phone calls. In the rural areas that I live in those 2 states, to have only 2 or 3 pages of therapists. So I was just,
nice.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Not like being in here in Virginia. I think there's 10 or 12 where I live. So it's just a lot harder to get noticed. The other thing is what insurance take and reimburse for online telehealth. And Blue Cross Blue Shield in Virginia does on most plans, and in Hawaii a lot does too. So I've contracted with a few Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then also some EAPs that reimburse for online. So being really specific and asking a lot of questions of those people, and making sure that I get the right kind of contracts so that I can feel good about what I'm doing and that I'm doing it ethically.
There is an EAP called Lyra, and I don't know if they're in Virginia, but they're really big in California, and I am contracted with them in Florida, and they work with a lot of tech companies. And what I love about their clients is that people are technologically savvy, and so they're really comfortable doing Skype sessions or online sessions or whatever. You know, my go-to is always to call them Skype sessions because that's like what I call them, but you know, HIPAA compliant online sessions. And so they're already used to technology. They're also already used to signing into systems. They're already used to what, you know, new platforms. And I love that. And so you're right, like looking into EAPs, like really, especially like local EAPs or really specific EAPs for different types of populations. Like this one is a tech company, works amazing for me. And so, I love that. And also I think the insurance companies are getting a little bit more up to speed on providing telehealth or paying for telehealth. I've gotten some things in the mail myself about that and what that looks like. I think that's going to be really huge, especially for rural areas. You know, I've talked to a lot of therapists in rural areas, and I'm in a pretty large area as well. I'm in a very suburban area. And so there's a lot of therapists and there's a lot of people. And so when I do Google searches, it's like you've got 500,000 people in your vicinity that, you know, can potentially be your clients. And when I look in rural areas and I'm like, well, you have 5,000 people and like, you know, 3 people a month are looking for a therapist. Like that's it's really tough because you can actually look through all the keywords, like what people are searching for. I'm like, oh, like I have a supervisee in Key Largo. I'm like, oh, like 10 people last month looked for, you know, even psychologists in, you know, Key Largo. I'm like, yeah, good luck. Like we may have to start looking at some other things that for her, it's tough because registered interns, there are some limitations about what they can do for online sessions. But I think definitely in rural areas, it's a great way to be able to bridge the gap for mental health.
Absolutely. And I think you're, you know, there, when you're in a city and you search a lot of Google or you can try to ask your friends on Facebook, like, where's a good place to go, you know, to get my hair cut, right? But, you know, everybody you do it a lot by Yelp reviews, right? And in small communities, people ask each other because everybody knows each other, right? So to be a therapist in a small community, I think you really have to get out there and do good work. Go to meetups, go to networking events, give free talks at the library, you know, really just telling people that you're there and communicating on that one-on-one level. You know, I think too, trying to run groups from small communities, people are really freaked out about who's going to be in the group and they get scared to come. And so I just like to tell people I do a lot of online skill building, and it's, you know, we were talking about this last week. It's a lot different in the room. People are more willing to talk to each other. And when you're online with like 6 or 8 people in the little box, everybody kind of waits. You know, who's going to go next? And I think that's, you know, there's just little differences like that with online therapy that's different than being in the room. There's a lot of like having to just be okay with some silences or awkwardness because you can't feel the other person. Like I think so many of us therapists are so empathetic and we can really feel what our clients are bringing in. I can still do that online, but there's just a little bit of a different way of being able to be more relaxed and not have to do anything or fix anything, even though, you know, this is kind of like a transactional relationship online, right? Like you say something, I say something.
I find that my online sessions that I have with college students are great because again, it's a population that's used to using online modalities. They grew up with laptops and they grew up with iPhones and they grew up with putting themselves on videos. And so totally. Yeah, I think also looking at, again, what kind of population are you working with? I loved how you said like people who are homebound, right? Maybe medical issues. I think that's awesome. You know, I wanted to ask you a question. If you know anything or have any insight into things like Talkspace or BetterHelp and why you chose maybe to just do this on your own versus going with a platform like that. Because I've heard pros and cons. I've heard people say, I absolutely love it. I work from home. They take their percentage, but I'm making a good amount of money. And then I hear people say, I didn't get anybody from them and it's a ripoff. And so I've heard both sides of the spectrum. I'm curious if you have any insight for our watchers.
Sure. Yeah. You know, and I think a lot of people ask about Talkspace and BetterHelp, and I've done Talkspace and I have a very, very small client load there. And I think the difference for one is in Hawaii, again, being a licensed therapist there, super rural area, there's not a lot of people. I get a lot more clients just because there's not a lot of therapists. And working on Talkspace isn't my best work. I don't text very well back and forth. It doesn't engage me as easily. I really am a like somatic therapist at heart. And so a lot of the mind body work, I can really relate better when I can see people over the Zoom. And you can do that, but they have to buy into the plan, right? So it's really client dependent. So when I started feeling like, wow, I just really want to see my clients and support my clients in a way that I can show up as the best person that I am, because then I'm doing the best work that I can do and I feel good about it every day and I get better results for my clients. If texting therapy or if you can really work that way, I've really met some people that work really well that way, writing out stories. Maybe if you're more into narrative therapy, if that's really your niche, this might be something Talkspace and BetterHelp would be really good for you. BetterHelp, I think you just have to have a really large number of clients, and it gets hard for me. I'm pretty introverted. I try to keep up with everybody in my mind. It gets too overwhelming. So I like a smaller number of people in my practice so I can give better care. So that's kind of my shtick.
What are some of the pros of doing online counseling?
Well, you were
talking. You get to wear pajama pants. And
yeah.
I always hear that from everybody. They're like, I get to wear pajama pants. I'm like, yeah, until like, for me, it's like until my cat starts crying at the door and I've got to get up and they're seeing these like plaid. Like.
Totally. Yeah. Yesterday, someone was ringing my doorbell and I was like, oh my God, trying to, pay attention to that. And I think, you hit on something else, which was like, what if my client is suicidal, or, what if they're in an area I don't know about? And I think you do have to do a lot more research. For me, taking the clients on from Hawaii, I know so much about the area and the places and the hospitals and the people that work there. So I feel totally comfortable if my clients are having some sort of thing that I feel like I need to get more support, I can guide them on how to do that online. In Virginia, one of the best things is, my partner commutes 2 hours each way to work in the traffic. So it's really nice for people here to feel like they can just come home from work. They're at home drinking their tea, having their soup, talking to me about their long day. They're not having to drive again in the car. And I'm not having to be out past 7 o'clock, which I don't like being at my practice, but some of my clients really need those later sessions. Another thing that I really love is maybe I'll have like 3 sessions. I can come downstairs, make dinner, hang out with my partner, and go back upstairs for 3 more hours. So it really enables me to kind of have a more relaxed and intentional lifestyle for myself. And that's probably my number one love.
I can see that as you talk about it. It sounded really like authentic to who you are and really good for you. I think that's great. And, I think it goes back to really knowing who you are as a clinician. Do you need more time? Like my commute is not 2 hours, but it's I leave an hour before my first session just to make sure that I get there. And then it takes me about 45 minutes on the way home. And I'm always like, oh, I need to be closer. But, yeah. I think there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what people do. What I have heard probably is the most popular model for people who are in offices now. So for those of you who are thinking about maybe doing some online sessions, is like somebody will be in the office 3 days a week and 1 day a week they'll be at home, or 4 days a week, 1 day a week. And then they start to transition into that. And I think that's a great, medium ground, right? So then that way it's not just you're jumping from one type of interaction to another type of interaction. So I think that's really cool. Well, do you have anything else you would want our viewers to know or to consider?
I think being out and the way we met on social media and connected and just how all of that happened, there's so much connection available for us. And I just appreciate like the ways that we're able to help each other, really support each other to get the word out there to people in the world about what therapy is and to break down some of the stigma and, just to keep spreading the word. I feel like that's a part of what we're all doing here in this kind of realm of social media, saying like, hey, let's all support each other. There's millions of clients out there. Like there's enough work for all of us. So I just appreciate you just, trying to help everyone up level their game and their lives and be successful in what they want to do. So thanks for providing this space. And Psychotherapist Online, we're doing a 5-day free challenge, and that link will be up soon. And I think that's just one more way to kind of help demystify therapy and give us all a little self-care and self-love. Join us.
How could people follow you on Instagram? That's how we connected. And so, yeah.
Psychotherapist.online on Instagram, and same on Facebook, Christi Garner Psychotherapist Online. And that's where all of my links and things are. So
I love how you've branded yourself with the online so people know.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
And so, awesome. So all of this information will be in the show notes so that you can get in touch with Christi. And I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Therapy Notes. So those of you who are looking for an electronic health record, maybe you still have pen and paper, maybe you're not happy with the electronic health record you have, I highly recommend Therapy Notes. I actually recently transitioned over to them, so I'm excited to be utilizing them, billing, online, online reminders, online scheduling, text reminders, all of that. And so if you're looking for a full service electronic Therapy Notes, and for 2 months free, use the promo code Amanda. And if you're catching this video at the end, be sure to like the video and subscribe to this channel so you can get more private practice tips. And thank you again, Christi. Bye, everybody.